Welcome back to Chris and Retro. Tonight's video, I'm going to cover the hot topic of this CEO shooting for United Health. And they've caught a suspect. I haven't covered anything on this up to this point, but I'm going to focus on a few areas I think are important for my audience anyway. So the gentleman's name is Luigi, starts with Luigi Mangioni. So Luigi Mangioni is, I was kind of in the conspiracy category. I'm like, man, this is way too easy. They got this guy. And evidently based on his behavior, he actually was doing something to try to become a social justice hero. So with this has come all kinds of insanity. So first observation I would have is that prior to this recent election, if you mentioned anything about weapons or school shootings or anything like that, the focus was on the gun. And the same group of people that focused on the gun were really the media and subsequently people that devour that type of stuff. And so what I found interesting over the last few days is that on pretty much all media channels and any other shooting in a liberal controlled culture, from politics perspective and the media, we would not have had gun experts on there trying to get to the root cause of who did it. We would automatically blame a category of people that own a gun. That's how we behaved. And that's what's really been going on. So you'd always hear about get rid of guns, get rid of guns, get rid of guns. Well, now all of a sudden that the gun experts now and dealing with what the specifics are of this case are really what's dominating the news. And I thought that was interesting versus what we've seen the complete opposite when, we've had other political power. So if we think the media is not driven by politics, you're nuts. I don't know what else to tell you about it. Just look at how the headlines are behaving now already. But lo and behold, we did find a way to virtue signal out of all this stuff. And so now we have another group of people that are really starting to emerge that are really happy, that this guy got shot because of all the people that are passing because of they're uncovered. Now, I am not supportive of how insurance companies handle themselves. I think it's a lot of crooked nonsense, and I don't support what they're doing. And I do think it's tragic that people are losing their lives in medical care and facilities because they're just not getting coverage for something when we have the capability of treating them. And I think that's really tragic, and it really speaks to the volumes of how long we've had a broken healthcare system, and really not to that point where it's kind of like in your personal finances when your debt gets too high and you've borrowed from everybody you can borrow and you're financially strapped and you can't get any more lending. That's what the healthcare system has done. They've gotten themselves so far beyond. There's no more grace to be offered to them. And it's just very broken. And a lot of people are losing their lives over it. However, I don't think that it condones celebration of a CEO getting shot because where does that end? But that's not really the main point of the video here. The main point of the video is the absolute hypocrisy that I'm seeing. And for my recovery community, I want to send out some cautionary advice for what it's worth from me. But I want to share Jesse on Fire. Again, I shot him out last couple videos ago. I'm going to shout him out again here because he gets a little wound up. He very conservative views. He gets very wound up and he doesn't let us down in this one. So I'm going to share with you a take he has. He actually is sharing I'm not sure if this is Luigi's wife or if it's just somebody I think it's his wife or a girlfriend or whatever she is. And it's either his girlfriend or it's somebody it's part of this whole movement that says yay. So I'm going to play that real quick for you. And then I'm going to get back on point here with some of the things I want to share. So this is Jesse, and he just did this, I think, tonight.
I did around one thing, and that is celebrating, I hate to say it too, the death of a healthcare CEO. You have to ask why. And
who is celebrating the death of a healthcare CEO?
We are celebrating the death of a healthcare CEO. So hold that.
Outside of your bubble of fucking psychopaths, okay?
Sorry, guys.
We voted in a Kennedy who literally is going to go gut the entire industry that you're pretending that you care about. Okay? That's what we did. That's who we voted for specifically to address this issue. You, okay, when put to the test, when it was like, hey, you guys can't come into this building if you guys haven't done exactly what those people say, you were like, just let them die. If they don't want to comply, don't give them the health care they need. Okay, let them die. Hey, now you care. Now you care because you get to fill your bloodlust and pretend like you're on some
So I'm not sure that I 100% agree with the you versus them thing, but my video is going to take that bend. So for those that have liberal views on here that are in the recovery community, you're still my community. I still care about what your well-being, but my personal perspective on this, there's a lot of hypocrisy going on with this specific situation. I would like you to at least acknowledge that it is hypocritical what we're seeing.
Some hill of virtue. Hey, why is everyone celebrating this guy dying? It's like, we're not. We've already said that we don't like this industry by voting. We don't have to murder people. Okay, I'm going to let her continue to talk.
So he's pretty wound up about this, and I share, his views on a lot of things. This particular issue didn't make me that excited. I was more curious. It still feels like something weird here, but after hearing some of the comments that Luigi made, even in the last 24 hours, I'm kind of thinking that this was not some framing, which I was definitely leaning to. I actually had a conversation with my neighbor earlier yesterday, and he thought I was nuts for my views on it, and now I'm starting to wonder maybe I was.
I have not seen the rest of this. I paused it right there, and I'm like, I am going to show everyone else this psychopath.
I don't think that has been discussed at all. There's no discussions of the systemic cruelty in our healthcare system, or the fact that thousands of Americans die because CEOs like this one and others deny essential life-saving care to Americans. And I think that's where this anger is coming from. And
I agree with her that there is anger coming from that, but it's not like nobody has talked about that. They're not using the same language. They're not leveraging a homicide on camera in New York City. They weren't leveraging this platform, but the conversation has certainly been there. And I think that all sides would agree that people shouldn't be dying in our hospitals that just because they don't have coverage.
Of course, people are going to get a little carried away and celebrate, but they're celebrating because it feels like a victory. It feels like.
So that's where I got sideways, and you can see by Jesse's face, they're celebrating because it feels like a victory. And that's where I'm going to stop sharing that, because that really illustrates my point. So here's where I was going with this. There's some massive hypocrisy here, and I think it really boils down to, if you're going to have a belief system, stay consistent. So the media is following in suit, and because the media isn't doing it, now the other side, these virtual signalers are out using the same tactics that were used to get our current office in place. And that was, using non-traditional media, and that's what they're trying to do. Now this clip is more from traditional media, but that's where this all started. I mean, these comments all started. I saw a bunch of stuff on TikTok before this became anything mainstream video of this whole argument. But celebrating, she's using celebrating, and it feels like a victory. A murder feels like a victory. This is coming from the same people that anytime somebody fires a gun anywhere, they're going to say, get rid of guns. But now all of a sudden, a gun makes sense because it's got some virtue to it that is bigger and it aligns with what they're saying. I find the hypocrisy in that ridiculous. And honestly, there's no noble outcry that I find credible at all when you have such a foundational, in your face hypocrisy. And we see this over and over again. It's exactly why Donald Trump is president and why we have so many people that the conservative views switched like they did. I'm not a Trump fan. Of my options, he was the better choice in my opinion. However, I'm not a Trump fan, but I do believe in a lot of what he's done, and I believe a lot in what our country could do. But I think a lot of the stuff he does is a little bit too far the other way. Just my view. It's just how I look at things now. But this notion that you can just flip flop on the core of it. The guns were the core of all this discussion before, and everybody hated guns on this virtue side. And now all of a sudden, this gun, all the other guns, but this gun has virtue to it. But all the other guns, that's not the people that are using them, it's the gun. But in this one, because the person that used this gun had such noble intent, that he should be appraised. And we probably wouldn't want to regulate that gun. We want to just keep one laying around like a fire extinguisher, just in case there's some kind of noble intent that needs to be executed, literally executed, on a major city in the United States. We just keep it in a little box, like a little red lever, go over and pull it, and pull that out, because then you can use it. And you don't need a license or training or anything. All we're just asking is that you only use it for virtue and things that we believe in. Obviously, that's ridiculous, but that's exactly what we're behaving as right now. The virtual outcry would tell us to be enraged over all these guns. And now all of a sudden, We should be enraged over the fact that you're not, how can you possibly be upset? He's a CEO of United Health or Unity Health. Yeah, United Health. And they represent all of these bad things that happen to us, all of us. And we should align with the fact this man should be dead on camera in front of his family, as Jesse argued, and I agree with. So what is my point? I got a couple of points. One is stop. We've heard your crap before, and I'm not buying it. Nobody else should either. They're walking into this thing with thinking we're stupid, and we've shown them we're not with our vote. At the same time, no matter how you frame this situation up, it's tragic. So if you look at the side that they're focused on, and that is people dying from lack of insurance coverage, that's tragic. I actually was just I got a lion tattoo across my chest a while back, and I was just having some finishing work done the other day, and I've got one more session there. Well, anyway, while I was sitting there, it's a pretty long project, and where the guy, one of the tattoo artists that wasn't working, didn't have anybody in, was talking to me about his mother had passed because of lack of coverage, and she had died before she could get to the hospital. He could get to the hospital. They had people there that actually could do the work. They were capable, highly trained, and couldn't do it because of lack of insurance coverage. So yes, I understand, man. I don't understand. I could feel I would be enraged if one of my family members died because of lack of insurance coverage, but it doesn't mean that I should celebrate a businessman getting gunned down in the street. It also shows how ridiculous people think this, how they think this works. It's madness to think that the CEO is the one that caused all this denial of coverage. They're running organizations that have a financial math problem set up, and that math problem needs to be fixed, not gunning down people based on some virtue. I am a supporter of legally owning guns. My argument has been all along that the only people that are doing the atrocities that we see are people that shouldn't have them in the first place. Now, I don't know the background on this. I haven't done enough digging in to find out if this is a legal weapon or not. I don't think it was, but who knows? If it was, so what? It then goes back to the same thing. The regulations aren't the problem when it comes to weapons. It's coming from the user and what they're intending to do. That is the argument on guns. And on healthcare, yes, it is broken and we want it fixed. We want people to have coverage. We want them to have reasonably inexpensive coverage. So that's one. I mean, how many people out there are paying, ridiculous amounts of money, even with employer matches or contributions to their insurance, and they have insurance, and they still have copays and everything else on top of it, and massive prescriptions. So we are a family that has that problem. There's only so much it covers, and we're paying for it. So it's like, I'm with you, man. I understand the healthcare system's broken, and I want to see it fixed. But it's not going to be fixed by this. And on top of that, so that's one portion I want to cover today, is that, on top of that, we can't deal with this hypocrisy. Stop the noble nonsense that's not real. We know you're not real. You've got this issue and you're going to move on to the next. A bunch of people clout chasing this stuff, and they go out and make a name for themselves, and that becomes a career. They find a way to do it, and they come out pounding their chest, but there's probably 20 things that they do that somebody else could pound their chest up about as well. It's ridiculous, and we're tired of hearing it. Look at the issue here. We had a man murdered. Wrong. We have people dying in our hospitals that just because they don't have the right math problem solved for them by some corporation. That also is wrong. Let's look at it for what it is and stop this noble virtual crap. Keep it based on it was a crime committed, and that crime needs to be resolved. The larger issue also needs to be resolved. I hope that my point is being made clear, is that I can see both sides in terms of what they say their objective is. My problem is how hypocritical this outcry is right now. It's just absolutely aggravating to me. So that's the first main point. But the second point is that for those of you in my community, I know how this stuff lands. I've been in recovery centers and everything else. When some major political calamity comes up, I've seen absolute knockdown, drag out arguments because you're just looking for something to fight. When you're in that mindset, you're just kind of just had it with everything. And all of a sudden you're seeing this, so you choose that fight. It's not helping anybody in the recovery community to get wound around politicians and wound around politics and things like that. This issue is interesting for you, but it didn't affect you personally. The insurance might actually be affecting you personally. So make sure you're voting for the right people. Make sure that you're having your voice heard. Organize so that your voice is louder, or connect with groups that are organized to make sure your voice is louder and get this insurance and healthcare problem solved. We should get it solved. But it doesn't mean that we should have a quote unquote fire extinguisher weapon laying around everywhere just in case we see somebody needs to get picked off because we don't believe that what they're doing is correct. Does that sound like murder to you? It does to me, but according to this person, it's a victory. And it's I'm not sure what that is. Is it a victory because somebody defends themselves in the home and wipe somebody else out? Is that a victory? We call it self-defense. They might call it if nobody had guns, then none of that stuff would happen. I'd call bull on that, because baseball bats work too. So I hear this, and there's been a lot of thoughts going through my head. I was having a hard time figuring out how I could collect a video down to something that would matter to my audience. 'Cause personally, I have a lot of beliefs that are outside of what we talk about on this channel that really just, I wasn't enraged by the situation at first until I started hearing all this friggin' virtue signaling come back out again. It's like, come on, when is this crap going to stop? Stop doing your self-righteous nonsense and driving it down my throat and absolutely violating the other virtues that you were signaling 6 months ago. It's insane. Absolutely insane. So guys, the take-home message, I try to have a take-home message on this. When you hear this stuff, hear it for what it is. And by all means, please consider, before you're going out there and making bold statements, make sure you understand if you're vacillating or being hypocritical about what you believe. If you, at one point, you're just following an emotional response, and then the next thing you're following an emotional response based on party line or the media manipulating you, pause for a second, think for yourself, talk for yourself. And when you do things to make change, positive change. Yelling and screaming on a mic is not going to do it. What I'm trying to do right now on this mic is to instill in you that you have options outside of this type of activity, both murder and crying on social media about something that is just completely not plausible when you've lost your credibility because you do it over everything. We've done it over gender. We've done it over sexual orientation. We've done it over guns. We've done it over plenty with Trump, Trump this, Trump that, whatever. You name the issue, it's always a virtue attack to it. You're either dumb or you're not moral if you don't believe me. Otherwise, you're, see ya. In recovery, we don't have really the option to get wrapped up into this stuff. We got to stay focused on what matters in our lives, and that is our recovery and rebuilding our own personal life. If a matter like this has affected your family, organize. Get with other people that also feel this passion and actually do something about it rather than screaming from the mountaintops. Activism worked back in the day when there was not a lot of policy and there was a lot of people being downtrodden. Activism worked because out of that voice, like Martin Luther King Jr., work came. Groups of people would go march and do work to change the system. That's not happening. We are a 30-second generation that screams and cries about this for a while, and then all of a sudden something else happens. We scream and cry about that for a while, and then something else happens. We scream and cry about that for a while. And all these issues were so massively important, and no real work gets done. And the only thing that fills that vacuum is opportunists that basically turn into nonprofits that are bilking money. Rather than say, if you really are that passionate about it, create an organization or create some kind of structure, construct that brings people together to go move forward and work on this. But by all means, be consistent, for God's sakes. If you don't believe guns, then don't believe guns should be killing CEOs. If you do believe guns, don't believe guns should be killing CEOs. If you believe the healthcare system is broken, then go do something about it. That's that. If you think it's the CEO's fault, fine. Figure out if it is. If it is, have the person arrested for mass murder. I don't know. There's got to be options, but this isn't one. And we can have that conversation all day long. I think all of us would agree that murder shouldn't be the option unless, you're a child molester and that chomo should, be first in line in that one. But I just, the whole notion and how this is behaved or how this is handled was really just aggravating for me. And what I'm trying to do is convey that with you to say, look, if I'm in a broken place in recovery and I'm trying to get my life back together, the media wants us so freaking wound up. There's no place for it. Be cautious what you hear. So that was the second point I want to make, is just make sure that when you're hearing these types of things, that you're couching them where they should be and not in a place that derails your mental health and the work that you're trying to do to get better. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hearing my rant tonight. Probably not as organized as some of these are. There's so many facets to it. It's early, but again, it was like, boop, boop, here comes the next thing. I can walk in and look like I'm a noble warrior and smarter than everybody else, when in fact, you're just mouthy. Guys, Please like and subscribe. Channel's growing. I'm really excited. We're near 5,000 subscribers as I'm speaking to you now. So we've got some growth going. I've used some new tools that have helped me get in front of different audiences, which I'm really happy about. And it does seem to be yielding a result. So I'll be producing more content, more shorts, things like that, and trying to figure out a way to continue to grow this channel and have it be something meaningful in your life and the lives of other people. Between now and the next time we talk, I'm going to do everything I can to stay out of trouble, and I hope you do too.